Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Greatest Salesman podcast every Wednesday at 2 o'clock Pacific time. I like to call it Wisdom Wednesday. My name is Dan McCormick, the ambassador for the Augmandino Company, and brought to you each and every week is the greatest salespeople in the world. We've got a very, very special guest today. It's going to be a blast, and the great thing about Augmandino is he had this remarkable philosophy for living, an unbelievable way of writing, and a remarkable example of what it was like to truly be the greatest salesman in the world after what he went through. We'll talk more about that later on. Welcome our friends across the pond. We welcome people north of the border. We've got people here from Edinburgh to Canada, and we're so thrilled that you'd be joining us here today. If you're new to the podcast, we'd love it if you'd go to thegreatestsalesman.com. If you download any of the shows, you can certainly write a review. If you're on any of the podcast sites, you can leave a review. Leave comments. Feel free, if you're on Facebook or YouTube live with us here today, to actually leave your comments, ask questions, chime in, be part of the interview, if you will. And good day from Texas and Glasgow. We're glad you're all with us here today. We hope that you'll share that. You can feel free to share the show if you're on Facebook right now. And certainly like, share, comment. We love it all. And what I really love is that when every single Wednesday at 2 o'clock, I get to interview some of the greatest people in the world. And today is none other than the author, the co-author, her and her husband, of Go for No, this iconic brand in the world of direct selling, the world of selling. And she is Andrea Waltz from the fabulous Orlando, Florida. Andrea, how are you today?
Hey, Dan, I am doing great.
Thank you for making the time. It is so great every single week. Most of those that have been to the show before know that I love to start off before we talk about any of the niceties of the amazing things about Augmandino or your book, is I love to just dive in and say, I've got you in the hot seat. I've got you in that greatest salesman chair. And I love to just reach into your mind and say, what do you think are the three things that have shaped your life or each and every day of your life to lead you to this success?
Okay, I love this question. And I've given it some thought. So the first thing is definitely creativity, is creation, creating. I always wanted to be a writer when I was young, but I had no idea how I was going to pull that off. Luckily, my fabulous, wonderful husband and business partner figured out how we could do that together. But I just love the idea of taking a thought, an idea, a story, and putting it out into the world where it was never there before. So creation is definitely one of them. The second thing is freedom. Freedom has informed my life completely, especially for the last 25 years or almost that of being an entrepreneur. I wake up every day so grateful to be in this country, first of all, even with its challenges. And I'm super grateful and so believe in the life that I've been able to create, which is one of freedom, where I get to wake up every day and say, okay, what do I want to do today? What progress do I want to make? What actions do I want to take? So freedom is the second one. And then finally, the third one is just progress. I love the saying progress, not perfection. And again, I wake up every day thinking, okay, how do I get the Go for No message out today? What interesting thing, what cool thing? So today it's getting to talk to you, which is awesome. Can I do to bring this message to the world? So it's just making a little bit of progress on something every day. I am so far from perfect in so many areas. I'm a goal setter, but I'm not great with some of that. I have so many flaws, but I do believe that if I can make a little progress in health, maybe one day, in my business, maybe the next day, that I'll eventually get to where I want to be.
You know, it's fascinating for me. This is episode number 28, and you're the second person that has put that as their first. Both have been female. And it is just awesome because it is a fascinating word, creativity, isn't it? We could go back to the Bible and look at creation. We could look at everything to do with art or family, or for you to write a book like Go for No. I mean, whoever thought of three simple words like that go for no, right? And so it's a really, really cool thing. I love it when people give it thought to what those three things are. Of course, freedom. Most of our fans, most of our listeners, most of our likes and comments are going to come from those entrepreneurial, free thinking, free spirits. One of the things about the Augmandino company is we get to measure the thoughts of thousands of entrepreneurs, and most of them, 96%, have that free thinking spirit. They're going to resist structure. They want freedom, if you will. So that's a great word. And I loved how somebody, I think it was Sharon, put up that her word for the year was progress. If Miriam could put that back up on the screen, that's a great one. I had not thought about that as one of my three. I wrote down progress versus perfection, and that is really great stuff. So thank you so much for sharing that. What was it like, that exercise? You said you enjoyed the exercise. What was it like for you?
Well, there's so much. And as somebody who's a student of personal development, I look at just a plethora of words and attitudes and things that have shaped my life and my day. So it was just like challenging to, I think, kind of bring it into three and to make sure that I covered every area of my life. And I don't know that I did perfectly, but I figured, okay, good enough.
Oh, really good enough. Really fantastic. Okay, so I've got up on my screen here, Go for No. Now tell us when it was first published. 2004, 5?
2000. Yeah, we published it in 2000. We self-published. It's still self-published to this day. Richard wrote it in 17 days, basically, in December of 1999. And then we figured out how to, it actually wasn't our first book. Go for No is actually our third. We wrote two others before that. And one of them, the first book we ever wrote, was actually a fable. And it was almost called Secrets of the Ragman, which was another Augmandino, like very similar to an Augmandino title. And so we changed it and we called it Unlocking the Secrets of Retail Magic, about a kind of mystical character, very much like what you see in The Greatest Salesman, and about a guy who learns these special lessons and all of that. So that was the first one that we did.
Wow. I love the subtitle, or the name that goes with it. Yes is the destination. No is how you get there. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Fundamental philosophy of what Go for No means. And by the way, I think a lot of people hear it and they think, like, what a horrible, like, some people get it and they go like, I love it. I love it. Some people hear it and they go, what a horrible title. Like, I don't want to hear no. I want to hear yeses. Who wants to hear more no's? This is crazy. These people are lunatics. So I think, thank God for the subtitle. I think it saves us a little bit, because the reality is that you can't get yes without no. In fact, I have to just, can I just read this little segment?
Please. Okay, we all want to be read to. I want to hear it, please.
Yeah. So in The Greatest Salesman, actually, it says, I will remember the ancient laws of averages and I will bend it to my good. I will persist with the knowledge that each failure to sell will increase my chance for success at the next attempt. Each nay I hear will bring me closer to the sound of yay. Wow. So that's fundamentally the philosophy. It's failure, rejection. Hearing the word no is on one side, success, hearing yes is on the other, and they're really opposite sides of the same coin. And so if you want to increase the yeses in your life, we're not talking about sabotage. We're not talking about failure just for failure's sake and doing it because you're doing a bad job, right? You want to do the best possible job you can in all areas. But what we are talking about is being willing and understanding that it's part of the process.
Yeah, it really is interesting, because I had a different challenge when I was a 19-year-old young man and I'm brand new in the industry. I actually felt awkward taking money from people. I hadn't bridged that as a new person in the industry now 38 years ago. And now it's kind of like, it's no big deal. I mean, if they don't like me, they don't like my products, it's okay. There's only 2.5 billion people on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, So it's an interesting journey, isn't it, to get people to really just kind of let that be something that's just part of the process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, taking no personally is probably one of the single biggest issues that we deal with. And it's not actually something that we really dig into with Go for No. It's something that I recognized after all these years of teaching it and talking to people and seeing, like, they do take it personally. And by the way, Dan, I mean, Rich and I say this all the time. There's no way that we together could have written Go for No and could talk about Go for No without ourselves having a fear of failure and rejection and not liking the word no, because we needed it as much as we love to teach it. So we understand where people are coming from. And I, for sure, was a people pleaser, didn't want to hear the word no, assumed that if somebody were to reject me, that meant that they didn't like me and that I was on the wrong path and I was doing something bad. And so I've done a lot of work on myself over the years to get to a place where I understand that that's not the case, and actually discovered the secret through another book, which we can talk about later. But that really, that it's never personal. It's hearing the word no is never personal. Even when it's about you, it's not about you. That's the interesting thing.
Yeah. Wow. I think I love this. If you could put that back up, Miriam. Sherry's saying hundreds of no's and all you need is one yes. And it's interesting that, one yes might pay for a child's new dress. One yes might pay for a mortgage payment, depending on if you're recruiting somebody in the world of network marketing. One yes, if you're in real estate sales, could change. I mean, there's so many keys to just that one yes. I know in my life, my wife sponsored an individual that went on to become the #1 distributor in the world of a multi-billion-dollar company. So that one yes made us millions of dollars. I can think of one phone call to somebody that said yes that's made me millions of dollars in Santa Barbara, California. So it's really a powerful thing to be okay with this and just know that someone fabulous is waiting to intersect on your path, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that's why it's so important to not give up, because we never know where that yes is hiding. And if somebody, told you that there were 1,000 doors that you had to knock on and you were going to hear 999 no's, but there was that one yes out there, you would keep going. Well, that's actually the case. Statistically speaking, for most of us, that's the case. So we just don't know where that yes is.
Fascinating, because as you held up the book, I believe you were reading from scroll number 3, right? I will persist until
I will persist. Exactly. Yes.
So I have that scroll in my hand here. It is, as I ask you, like I ask all of my Greatest Salesman guests to reread the book, I wonder what it was like for you to reread the book, how long it had been since you reread it or read it in the first place.
What's weird is I know that I read it like back when Richard and I first got together. I didn't know anything about personal development. He introduced me. The very first book I ever read was Zig Ziglar's Secrets of Closing the Sale. And I loved it. And we listened to the audios over and over. So I guess it was probably in the late 90s that I read it. And I didn't really remember it all that well. And especially the story. And I see so many quotes in the book, though, that I recognize because I'm such a quote lover, and I will, persist and all of these great quotes about failure and success. So I really fell in love with the story again, and I recognized that the thing I loved about it was that the main character, kind of like in the main character of Go for No, he's not this perfect person. He is debilitated with fear of failure. He's constantly questioning, like, is he going to let, his master down? Is he going to be able to pull this off? All of these things. And then he does have the failure of giving away the robe. It's just, and I think that's what makes stories like this and fables accessible, because I think we like seeing that other people are not, perfect, and they're not preachy. And even the scrolls don't come across as preachy, even though, that's really kind of where the lessons are. But I think the story really hit home for me.
The story, I'm with you on that. When COVID hit and I reached out to the Augmandino company, I've been an ambassador for several years, and I have had Dave and Paul on some of my other broadcasts 50, 60 times over the years. And I just went back and I reread that. And then I had other guests, Robert Hollis, early on in the podcast, maybe group number 4, podcast number 4, 5, 6, 7, something like that. And he says, I give every single person the greatest miracle, which is what the rag picker, you were given. And so he does that. And so I reread that, and I was so fascinated again with Aug's writing style and that humility and that, like you said, seeing imperfection in people in the parable it's really a treasure to see that style. And here we are talking about this book 52 years after it's written. We're talking about your book 21 years now after it's written. And so how do you keep Go for No relevant?
That's a really good question. Well, there's kind of two pieces, actually. One piece of the relevancy is just ourselves, I think, using the technology of the day, right, to push out the message. And as much as I sometimes feel like, oh, everybody's heard of Go for No, they haven't. In fact, I mean, I have a lot more books I want to sell, Dan. So I'm still have not scratched the surface on that. So I have a lot more work to do in that area.
Just pause for a second. Let's have everybody put a 1 on the screen if you're going to buy the book. Let's see if we can get a few 1s up here to help her live her dream. Because here's what Og says about your dream. I want to just share this with you. He says, I shall proceed with helping you to make your outlandish dreams come true. So we're going to see some 1s on the screen because people have already said they're going to be buying the book. Here we go. They're coming in now. So
thank you, Sherry.
That dream.
Thank you, Sharon. Yes, well, I appreciate that, you guys, and Betty. We have that piece of it. The other way that it's changed is that, Go for No is a short fable. It's 80 pages, and it's a story, and it talks about the philosophy. But there's so many things that we share, Richard and I, on stage when we speak in our training programs and things that we didn't cover. So many little nuances, some of them, kind of more philosophical, some of them, I guess you could say, more on the psychology side, some more on the strategic side. So there's so many nuances to Go for No that we didn't share. But the other thing is that, here's what I know though. Even with that said, even though we share other things and we do it with the new technology, this is the idea that people have a fear of asking and they have a fear of failure and rejection, that transcends technology, because I hear from people who are in their 20s who are nervous about getting on social media and getting rejected. And it's a different kind of rejection. It's not even in person. And you would think like, wow. And so what it is it's the emotions. It's not like, well, how do you do it? In terms of getting rejected at a door-to-door sale or at a coffee shop or online on Facebook. It's the physical reaction of getting that rejection or that fear of rejection. And so Go for No is really a principle as I see it. It's kind of one of these weird things. I like to say it's a philosophy and principle and a strategy all at the same time. And so that philosophy will never change. And the philosophy is have the courage to ask. That's pretty much what it comes down to. If you were to say like, what's the simplest way to describe Go for No? It's just have the courage to ask. When you have that opportunity, instead of talking yourself out of getting a no, go for it, risk getting the no, and oftentimes you'll get the yes.
I just so love that because I have this great friend named Kevin Hall who wrote a book called Aspire, The Power of Words. And he was on one of my other shows the other day. And we talk about words a lot. And you just said it. You just said my word. My word for the year is ask. And I just thought what you just said is so amazing because you tied it into a philosophy, a principle, and a strategy. Maybe somebody will type that in for us. A philosophy, a principle, and a strategy. That's an awesome thing that you've bridged that, because what Kevin taught me is that the origin of the word with his linguist that helped him write the book, the origin of the word is Indo-European. It's a strong channel that moves us forward. Prin, strong channel, PLE, moving us forward. So yes, it's going to help us get to where we want to go and live that outlandish dream of all of those people that put 1s in the screen for you. I think that was a lot of fun. Oh my gosh. There are so many great comments coming up on the screen. Miriam's having a blast behind the scenes right here. But I want to just pause for a minute. If you're new to the podcast, my name's Dan McCormick. Welcome to The Greatest Salesman. She is Andrea Waltz. She's the co-author of Go for No, an unbelievable book. Andrea, do you recommend people go to your website, or do you like them to go to Amazon, or which is your preference?
Wherever their shopping preference takes them is just fine.
Okay, that's fantastic. Well, what I want to do is just pause for a minute and share a quick commercial break, because you said something that is really fascinating. And that is, when I said, how do you make it relevant? You said, whatever the medium of the day is. And you know what? Today, it really is amazing that Facebook didn't exist 20 years ago.
Mhm.
And yet 2.5 billion people are connected on it. And so what we did at the Augmandino Company is say, how do we help more people get more no's, get more yeses? And let me just share with you that this episode is brought to you by Cracking the Social Code, powered by Habit Finder. Social currency has never been more valuable as it is right now, and Facebook is still the biggest bank. We want more interested people to connect with you than you can handle. It is time to crack the code and stop waiting for an algorithm to grant you access to the influence you deserve to make more sales, build dominant alliances, and add value to the world. Are you ready to put the social back in social media? Get out of the ponds of Facebook and move into the deep oceans of influence and dominant reach. Then you are ready for cracking the social code. As you can see going across the bottom of the screen right there, you can go to habitfinder.com/social VIP, and you'll find that the entire course just blew me away. Andrea, you and I were talking about this on the phone the other night. It just blew me away because we have this cybersecurity ninja warrior that can't be known to anybody. And he was just so impressed that Paul and the Habit Finder and the Augmandino Company built this step-by-step course and talked about these algorithms and helping people connect to, obviously, an ocean of people when it comes to Facebook. I know you and I talked on the phone last night. We were talking about, I said, how do you kind of, fill your day? Do you have a podcast? And you said, no, I like being on podcasts like yours. So I thought that was great. So tell us a little about how you go about that and how do you get in front of more people?
Yeah, I have a pretty robust outbound strategy. A lot of it is on social media. So it's connecting with my ideal target customer. That's somebody who has a sales team. It could be in direct sales or really, we've spoken at and done training for almost every kind of company you can imagine. So that's one kind of strategy. And then the rest is really sharing value on all of the other social media platforms, whether it's Instagram or Twitter. And it's funny how different, to talk about technology, how different it's changed over the years. But my goal is really to have people just keep Go for No top of mind and to remember it. I can't tell you how many people over the years, Dan, have read the book and then they come back to me a few years later and say, I forget that it's just an activity that I need to do. And we kind of get back in our old, our old ways, which I certainly do, where I've heard something amazing and I go like, I'm going to do this every day. This is a great thing. And then you kind of get back in your old routine. So I think Go for No is one of those.
It really is. It's a great title. It's a great book, and it's 20 years now, Go for No. We got a frozen screen there. Hopefully Andrea will come back. Hopefully I'm not frozen. Hopefully Miriam can give us thumbs up, or we're still live with you. But what's fascinating about that is we ask, and we do what we love, and hopefully you'll love what you sell. And no matter what you're selling, you'll continue to ask, as I have. So I've still got Andrea on a frozen screen. Miriam, can you chime in and tell me if it's me or I haven't moved or gone anywhere here? But looks like we're fine. Private chat me. You can text me. Andrea, we lost Andrea. Maybe she's going to chime back in, and that's just fine. I'm still on. Okay, good. Well, everybody, if you're just joining us, my name is Dan McCormick. Welcome to the Greatest Salesman podcast. Our guest just got somehow disconnected. We'll get her back on immediately. My name is Dan McCormick. I am fortunate to talk about this incredible book that's 52 years in the making, The Greatest Salesman in the World, every single week, Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific time. We've been going live now in our 28th episode. It is just an honor to have everybody join us and share your comments. And Andrea, we got Andrea coming back in here momentarily, so hopefully we'll get her to chime back in. But it's so great to see people from all over the world. For those that join us each and every week, it's just great to have you. It's great to welcome Andrea back. You never know about cyber world. What happened, right? You go anywhere, I didn't go anywhere. So I just kept talking. But you sounded great, and everything's fantastic. So let's go back to something else you mentioned a little bit ago, and that is you love personal development. When you reread the book, was there a scroll that stood out? You mentioned earlier kind of the character, the beginning. Was there a scroll that you could turn to or share with our listeners today that really struck you?
Yes, and this actually is so important, even from a go for no standpoint. This is an example of something that we don't talk about as much in the book, but it's so key. It's master your emotions. It's scroll 6.
So good.
Yeah, so good. That idea, and that goes back to that idea of taking no personally, right? And just allowing people to have their opinions, allow them to say no. When you allow those no's, you're open, and then you allow the yeses. It's instead of closing yourself off. So yeah, I just love today I will be the master of my emotions.
I mean, to me, this is so amazing because I think back, the very first cassette tapes that I ever heard when I started my direct selling career was cassettes by the vice president of Herbalife at the time. His name is Larry Thompson. They were called Millionaire Training. They're iconic, and they've been listened to by tens of thousands and millions of people. And he had that attitude about that mastering your emotions. And I just love that you bring that up, because I'm thinking about all the people that want more out of their sales career. Then they just have to ask more. They have to go for no more. And I love how you bring that up, because I just really didn't know how to handle that emotional thing of rejection as a 19-year-old. It was new for me to be in sales. I wanted the money. I didn't realize it was going to take me 7 years to go through this every day to really get to the emotional level that I could trust this. And I wonder if you've talked about that word in going for no. Do you talk to your audiences about trusting that process?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we talk about getting off the yes, no emotional roller coaster is what we call it, right? that, you get the yeses, you're up here, you're down when you get the no, and it's up, down, emotional roller coaster, and how you have to step off of that and the tools that you have to use to do that. And one of them, actually, interestingly, is to celebrate your no's and to not, and a big one is, and I don't know how much you're familiar with the work from Trevor Moawad, but he's a kind of sports psychologist, and he talks a lot about the research that's done that when you speak negatively, you actually, we think it, right? We think the words in our head like, oh, I'm such a loser. I can't believe this is happening. To actually say like, wow, this is not going well, and to literally speak that when you get a no, how detrimental that is. And so a big part of stepping off that emotional roller coaster is to stop that internal dialogue and also make sure that you're not speaking it, which is about 10 times more powerful in the brain in terms of that negativity that it creates. And then to really celebrate it and say, I just took action. I just was very courageous. Yeah, I got a no. Could have been a yes. The point is I did something today. And that's that progress that we talked about at the very beginning.
I love it. I so love that. And isn't that interesting that when you think about what Ben Franklin wrote, I've mentioned this many times on the podcast, he had the 13 virtues that he did 64 years of his life going after those one virtue a week, 64 yees. And you think, Og Mandino, where did he get the idea with the scrolls 3 times a day, so that you can, I think if I recall, W. Clement Stone even had kind of a similar rhythm, which of course was Og's boss at Combined Insurance Corporation of America back in the day. So that's a fantastic, the emotional roller coaster is real. I'm really glad you picked that scroll, because he goes through it with you so brilliantly. He talks about, if I become overconfident, who hasn't felt like, you got the Superman cape on some days when things are going so well and you're making money and life is fabulous. And then he says, I will recall my failures. And then if I overindulge, I will think of past hungers. He gives you these terrific metaphors of successes and failures in the scroll. It's really brilliant. I'm glad you brought it up.
And this is such a go for no philosophy as well. This really is kind of a persistence thing. He says, no longer will I judge a man on one meeting. No longer will I fail to call again tomorrow on he who meets with me with hate today. And that's something that we all have to remember, is that sometimes you can just hit somebody on a really bad day. You don't know what's going on with them. God knows that's true today more than ever. And so to just remember and to try to master your own emotions and have some compassion, because we don't know what's going on with people, and to say, you know what, listen, a no is a no, and it's a perfectly acceptable answer, don't get me wrong. So this is not about badgering people, but to say, hey, I understand maybe it's not something that you're interested in today. You mind if I check back with you to see if anything's changed, right? It's that just kind of keep the door open, like being willing to follow up and remembering that even if this person is hateful or negative, that it's really about what's going on with them and not anything that you did.
You know, it's interesting because I developed, I just love people so much that I'm just always interested, right? So oftentimes I simply say, who do you know? If I were to meet you today and we're at the beach or we're at the park or whatever, and I'd say, hey, by the way, you look like somebody that really enjoys people. I say, who do you know that is looking for something that loves people like you do? And very rarely is there a negative response to that, because I think in general, most of us in our heart of hearts, we like helping people. And whether you're in an elevator in the old days pre-COVID and you're going up and down a hotel like we used to go to hotel meetings all the time, or now when we're done here today, I'm going to go for a walk down on Laguna Beach. So, you know, you meet people and you're able to say, hey, you look like somebody that really enjoys people. I wonder, who do you know that likes social media? Who do you know that likes reading a book? You're right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. And I think you're right. People do want to help other people.
Indeed. And you did help a lot of people on your book, Go for No. If you're new with us, I hope everybody will be able to reach out and get that. Let's talk about your personal development journey. What are some other things that strike you when you say, you mentioned Trevor Moab. I love the idea, because a friend of mine that wrote the book, Big Ideas, used to work at Franklin Covey, Craig Case. He talks about that very specific emotion of where you need to get quiet. You need to get still. You need to count your blessings, and incredible things can come forward if you'll just let that negative thing go. You can celebrate it, but it's time to move on and celebrate. I like what Og says here, like the flowers, today's full bloom of joy will fade and wither into despondency, yet I will remember as that of today's dead flower carries the seed of tomorrow's bloom. I love that. So what are some of the things that you're reading?
You know, I read in different categories. So I love also business books, which I sales and marketing. I just can never, it never gets old to me. Personal growth in general. And then interesting books, like one of my favorites was a book called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And she was the woman behind the Eat, Pray, Love. Am I saying that right?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, movie and book. So there's kind of all these different categories. One of my absolute favorite books, and I alluded to it earlier, is called The Four Agreements. It's probably my favorite personal growth, personal development book of all time. And it was the book that got me through probably the big hurdles that I had in terms of really being able to be a person, a go for no type person, because one of the four agreements is to not take things personally. And the other one is about communication, about communicating with integrity. And I think that when we're honest, and when I love the idea of just telling the truth faster. That was one of a woman that we worked with actually, who was Zig Ziglar's. She did Zig Ziglar's events way back. And Richard and I, when we were first kind of building our speaking business, we flew to Dallas and we sat with her in her office, and she helped us for 2 days, like figure out how to craft our business and everything. And that was her mantra, was tell the truth faster. And so that idea of that communication and just being as honest as possible. That's why I said no is a perfectly acceptable answer. So it's never about not getting a no. It's just, having that courage. But the four agreements is just so powerful. So that's one of my absolute favorites.
Can you remind me of the author, please?
Oh, that's Don Miguel Ruiz.
Don Miguel Ruiz.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's a book that has a lot of emotional appeal for a lot of people, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Glad you brought that up. It's an awesome thing. It's awesome to be in love with the journey as you are, the personal development. You have a publishing company as well. You mentioned you love is it you or your husband that does more of the writing?
Richard is the lead writer of the two of us, and we do that intentionally because he really is. I mean, I love writing. We've just learned that I'm a great cleanup person, and he's the one that puts it all on paper first, and then and he's gotten better over the years, Dan, because when we would first work together, he hands me like 10 pages, and there'll be a page where I read it and I just I X it out. It's just a huge red X, and I go, no. And he's like, you're literally killing me here. He's like, that's so painful. But that's what we do. That's the kind of team we are. And so every book that we've ever written has pretty much gone through that process where he does the first draft, I go through and just completely destroy it, and then he rebuilds it again. And yeah, that's our process. We've learned how to be objective without. I feel for people, bands. I understand how bands break up now doing this process, right? Because everybody has their vision. Luckily, we've been very lucky because the two of us our visions are so integrated. We don't start a project with one of us having like an idea way out here and the other one having an idea way out there, and we're constantly battling about our vision. The vision's the same, so we are usually able to sell each other if someone has a slightly different idea on what the next thing should look like. One of the things that we did, and this was through just the success of Go for No, is we actually took a few years off. And I say off loosely, I mean, because I love it so much, I'm never really off. But we took 3 years and wrote a kind of paranormal suspense, like total just fun fiction series, which was 2,000 pages. It was 10 books. Wow. that we wrote together. And so that just goes to show you that, and we're still married. So obviously we work together well.
That's great. Well, I'm just thrilled that you would make the time to be with us today. And I want to point out to our audience today, and whether you're listening today live, you're on YouTube or Facebook, or you pick us up 6 weeks, 6 months, or 6 years from now on the podcast sites and whatnot. But it's fascinating that your commitment to those quotes that you put on Twitter every day is what made me think to call you. And so you never know, I mean, I've known you for years. Mm-hmm. You've spoken to, several of my team. A lot of my team have read your book. You've spoken at their events. Stephen Moore down in Florida told me you spoke to him years ago, and maybe it was Jupiter or Palm Beach or something. But it's interesting that you never know who or all of those comments and quotes that you put on Twitter. And finally I said, maybe I just ought to reach out to Andrea,
Yeah, that is so true. You never know. And that's why one of those keys is, never make assumptions about what you have no idea what's going on. And so you think that you're in an echo chamber and there's nobody watching and there's nobody listening, but there are. Persistence, man. Scroll 3. I mean, I love Master Your Emotions, but that persistence, there's ultimately that's my favorite.
It worked. It got us together here, Andrea. Yeah. I'm so happy, and Happy New Year. I want to thank everybody for listening today. I want to thank you, and hope everybody will keep putting those ones up on the screen over the months and years, and go out and buy Go for No. And of course, they can go to our Cracking the Social Code page as well that we mentioned earlier if they want to increase their reach into the world of social. There it is right there, haveafinder.com/social VIP. It is really great to have you. Continued success with the book. Perhaps we'll circle back and have you back at another time in the future, speak to other groups. It's awesome. Our team, you can see the comments here today. People loved it a lot. And I really look forward to sharing the journey with you and helping more people go for no.
You are doing fantastic work, Dan. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much. Everybody, have the greatest day of your life. I'm Dan McCormick on behalf of the Augmandino Company, the Greatest Salesman podcast. She's Andrea Waltz, the author of Go for No. I'm Dan McCormick signing off. See you next Wednesday, everybody. Bye for now.